On a clear winter night, if we gaze into the sky, we might see countless stars, constellations, planets, and other celestial bodies, all of them God's handiwork. American poet Carl Sandburg, in Special Starlight, wrote, "The creator of night and of birth was the maker of the stars. Shall we look up now at stars in winter and call them always sweeter friends, because this story of a mother and child never is told with the stars left out?" It's true. We can't tell the Christmas story with the stars left out. Today, we focus on the star that led the Magi to find the child Jesus and the holy light that still shines on us. May the one who created the stars of night guide us to Emmanuel, God with us.
Stars of night, your people's everlasting light. O Christ, Redeemer of us all, we pray you hear us when we call. Come. When we were drawing toward the night, you came but not in splendor bright, not as our King.
In ancient times, it was believed that the birth of a future king would be marked by a special occurrence in the heavens, a comet, a very bright star, an unusual conjunction of planets and stars. Sometimes the Bethlehem Star is considered to be Halley's Comet. Others say it represented the congruence of several bright stars or planets. The Magi believed that what was observed in the sky was reflected in events on earth, and so monitoring the sky gave insight into what was going to happen on earth. The star may be intended to remind us of Balaam's messianic prophecy in Numbers 24:17. A star shall come forth out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel. Especially at Christmas time, there's a lot of speculation as to what the Magi followed. Was it a comet? Was it a supernova? An unusual collection of planets and stars? Some biblical scholars believe that the star was never intended to be a natural phenomenon because of the way it moved across the sky ahead of the Magi and hovered over the house in Bethlehem. Whatever the nature of the star, for us, it represents an inward light that urges us to seek the giver of the light.
Day
In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem asking, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we observed his star at its rising and have come to pay him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all of Jerusalem with him. And calling together all of the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for it has been written by the prophet, 'And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For from you shall come a ruler who is to be shepherd of my people Israel.'" Then King Herod secretly called for the wise men and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word, so that I may also go and pay homage." When they heard the king, they set out, and there ahead of them went the star that they had been seeing since its rising, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they knelt down to pay him homage. The word for wise men in the Greek is magoi, which in Matthew designates astrologers, perhaps priests of the Zoroastrian religion called Magians. They paid particular attention to the stars and gained an international reputation for astrology, which at that time was a highly regarded science. They came from somewhere east of Jerusalem, probably Babylon, following what one hymnist called the Star of Wonder.
Star of wonder, star so bright, guide me on my way, then maybe I will find the gift of love and light. Lead me to the little baby. Star of wonder, star so bright, guide me
For as long as we can remember, children have reenacted the Incarnation with a Christmas pageant based on a melding of the accounts from Luke and Matthew. There's usually some hay lying around, maybe a roughly constructed stable overhead, and always a makeshift manger. Then here come Mary and Joseph. Mary with a light blue sheet draped over her, usually carrying a baby, sometimes real, and Joseph in a nice bathrobe. The shepherds are next in older, raggedy, dull-colored bathrobes with bath towels draped over their heads. Then come the angels wearing little white robes and cardboard and tinsel wings and sometimes halos, maybe a baseball cap. And finally, three figures draped in fancy robes with shiny material come traipsing toward the manger, wearing foil crowns, maybe a Burger King crown in there, carrying decorative boxes and decanters. It's the wise men coming, and they complete the manger scene and wrap up that Christmas story in a nice, neat package. But wait, there's something wrong with that picture. Angels appeared to the shepherds in the fields, but Luke doesn't say that they were at the manger, and neither were the Magi. And we sing, "We Three Kings," but nowhere does Matthew mention that they were kings or their number. There's no mention of a stable or Joseph or specifically where they found Jesus. It was in a house somewhere, or even the age of the child. But in spite of the inconsistencies, we're drawn in by this story. No matter how many times we hear it, we're apprehensive for Mary and Joseph as they embark on their journey to Bethlehem. We're in awe with the shepherds as the angels appear and announce the good news. We still hold our breath as the Magi encounter King Herod and as they follow the star to find the baby. And we can't help but join in the celebration when they find the Christ child and kneel down to worship him. Theologian Marcus Borg believed that the stories of Jesus' birth, as told by Matthew and Luke, are so different from each other that it's difficult to reconcile them as historical reports. He said the story of the wise men is most likely Matthew's literary creation. Accordingly, the Star of Bethlehem is a metaphor for Jesus' significance. The wise men, a metaphor for all nations following the Christ child. The gifts, a metaphor for our homage. The story of Jesus' birth is the story of light shining in the darkness. Whatever the astrological event, whatever lit the heavens and led those who search for the Christ child, it has continued to inspire Christians through the ages. Here we are, 2,000 years later, still seeking the light to guide us. And the star that led to Bethlehem is as bright as ever. It's the light of God that shines within each of us, guiding us on our journey and lighting our way in the darkness. For those who have seen the star, the light will never fade. The sense of wonder and the capacity to dream continues to capture the imagination. And like the Magi, we follow the mysterious and elusive star, whatever it might represent to us. We follow a bright star that leads us to hope. In a poem, Robert Frost speaks to a star in the sky and urges it to give him something to believe. He focuses on humanity's need for reassurance from a higher power that we're not alone. Not even stooping from its sphere, the star asks a little of us here. It asks of us a certain height. So when at times the mob is swayed to carry praise or blame too far, we may choose something like a star to stay our minds on and be stayed. Through the symbol of the wise men, we may also choose to follow a star. Matthew portrayed those wise men as the whole world traveling toward the star, perhaps to fulfill the prophecy from Isaiah 60, "Nations shall come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your dawn." Whether or not the story is literally historical, the truth of the message is that in the worship of God, we are called beyond all differences of ethnicity, class, gender, destined to be one people, each person a child of God, created in God's image. History, miracle, metaphor, the Bethlehem Star has captured our imagination through the ages. May its light continue to guide us, to be a lamp on our long journey until we come to the light of a more perfect day. Beautiful Star of Bethlehem, shine on.
Beautiful star of Bethlehem, shining afar through shadows dim, giving a light for those who long and call, and guiding the wise along their way unto the place where Jesus lay. Beautiful star of Bethlehem, shine on. Beautiful star of Bethlehem, shine upon us until the glory comes. Give us a lamp to light the way unto the land of perfect day. Beautiful star of Bethlehem, shine on, shine on. Beautiful star, the hope of life. Beautiful star, over the mountains till the break of dawn, and into the light of perfect day. Beautiful star of Bethlehem, shine on, shine on. Beautiful star among the star of Bethlehem, star of Bethlehem, shine upon us until the glory comes. Give us a lamp to light the way unto the land of perfect day. Beautiful star of Bethlehem, shine on, shine on. Beautiful star